Okay, I'm going to go over dealing with mesh gradients and trying to add cut lines to mesh gradients from maybe some artwork you downloaded off of a site on the internet. Mesh gradients, I'm sure you might have run into. You might not know what they were called, but that's what they're called. That's when you have kind of almost like this wireframe looking 3D like looking thing, and sometimes they're not very easy to deal with. But I'm going to show you a couple cool tricks that will quickly help this out, so you can deal with these a little bit better. If you don't know what a mesh gradient is, I'm going to recap that real fast right here. Just like a normal gradient, if you use them in Illustrator, this is not teaching you gradients or mesh gradients. This is just an overview of them. Here's a shape with a gradient, and here's the gradient tool. And obviously, these color stops, I can add colors to them, and they can fade from one color to the next. Very easy, very simple, basic gradient stuff right there. Now, a mesh gradient is a little bit different. I'm going to draw another box out here, and I'm going to hit the U on my keyboard to bring up the mesh gradient tool, and then I'm going to click inside this object to make this object a mesh gradient. So when I click in here, now each one of these where the lines cross each other is a node, and every one of these nodes can be a different color. So if I were to click on one of these points and then change the color, you'll see this real quick. You could now see that the color fades to this corner. I can click on the center node and change its color, and now you can see how I have these colors fade from one to another on each of these nodes. And I'll do one more over here in the corner. I'll change that. So with that, if you were to start moving these nodes around, you'll start to see that the colors, I can actually totally manipulate this thing. You'll start to see that the colors will start to pull and switch and move around. So that's where you start to get this type of stuff. And you can see how all these little lines, each of these lines and these nodes have a color assigned to them, much like this, but obviously taking a lot more time. Okay, so now that you know kind of a very loose idea what a mesh gradient is, I'm going to show you how to deal with these. So normally, what we've talked about in the past and other videos that I've done is you can just come here and kind of do an offset. So I'll just go to path and I'll do an offset path, and it really doesn't work because it kind of then makes all these other little lines. And let's see if I just call that in. This might actually work this way. Yeah. You got pieces in front of each other. You got some other. This was kind of we lucked out with this one because this one worked out really well. But I'm going to show you a cool trick to kind of deal with this, and so that you can get the shape you want. Something you could do out of the gate, because sometimes also you might have multiple of these like on top of each other, making one object like multiple different mesh gradients, as that is. So there you can see it there. So let's just put all these together, and that way we can make it as complicated as possible so that, let's see now, there we go. Okay, so we have all these. I'm going to select them all, and then I'm going to come up to Object. I'm going down to Path. I'm going to go Offset Path. I'm going to make this 0 is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to turn this to round, and then I'm going to hit OK. So now we have all these outlines in here that we now want to put together. So what I'm going to do is this cool little trick. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to open the layers panel so you can see this in the layers panel. I just copy them all. I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to group all this together. And then I'm going to hit paste in front, which is Command or Control F. And now I have them in front. With those objects in front, I'm going to come to my Pathfinder. And I'll recap this in a second. And I'm going to unite those all, right? So now, if I turn off my mesh gradients, you'll see I have this perfect outline shape of the objects that make up that mesh gradient. So now with that shape, I could just offset path 0.5 inches around. Well, that's a little big because this object's small, but that's okay. You get the picture. And then we're going to delete this other one, and then I can just... I delete the wrong one. I delete the wrong one. I want to delete that one. Every time you do an offset path, it makes a copy. So just remember that you'll always have two. You have to you'll have to delete one. But there you go. So if this object was the right size, and this would be a right cut line, but you can see how easy that was to make a cut line around a mesh gradient. So to recap, you just want to select your entire mesh gradient. Oh, make sure it's unlocked. Select your entire mesh gradient. Go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Make sure it's 0. Round. And don't worry about the miter because we don't have miter corners. And then that's it. And then copy, delete, and then then you can just paste in front, Command or Control F, and then unite those together. There you go. There's your shape. And like I said, the reason for the offset path 0 is sometimes these mesh gradients won't offset correctly. They become a mess. And when you do 0, it literally just traces it out just like this. So there you go. And you're good to go. Hope that helps you out.